Good afternoon, everybody, and you're very, very welcome to the second in our most recent series of masterclasses from the National Concert Hall, or at least virtually from the National Concert Hall, because as you are well aware, we are still operating in a virtual environment. Nonetheless, we're delighted to bring you a terrific series of masterclasses, and we do hope that you are so far enjoying them and will continue to do so as we progress over the next number of weeks. Today, we are delighted to present a trumpet masterclass with the exceptional trumpeter Colm Byrne. And Colm, you're very, very welcome to this afternoon's session. So thank you for taking part today.
Thanks, Nigel. Yeah, it's great to be here. Looking forward to it. Thanks.
Oh, Colin will be working with three young trumpet players, and just a little bit about the format. We will have two of these participants initially. Each session will be approximately 40 minutes, and then we'll have a very, very short break, just about 3 minutes to stretch the legs, and then we'll come back with our third participant. And following our third and final participant, there will be a short Q&A session with Colin. So our participants will no doubt have some questions that they will want to ask him at that stage, but we would also encourage anybody watching either on YouTube or Facebook to send us questions through the chat function of those platforms, and we will relay them to Colin to answer at the end of the masterclass. So we do hope that you stay with us during the afternoon, and we can promise some great music and some useful insights and musical comment from Colm. Colm completed his Bachelor of Music in Performance at the Royal Irish Academy of Music. Sorry, that's Glenn, excuse me, wrong page. Colm attended the Royal Irish Academy of Music to study trumpet with James Kavanagh, where he won the junior and senior Feis Kill and also the Walton Cup for brass. He took part in 10 years of ensemble playing with RIAM ensembles, the National Youth Orchestra, Irish Youth Symphonic Wind Ensemble, the European Wind Ensemble, and aged 15, he performed the Hummel Trumpet Concerto with the RTÉ Concert Orchestra for TV, broadcast by the European Broadcast Union. Colm then moved to Glasgow in the Royal Scottish Academy of Music and Drama, where he studied trumpet with John Gracie, who was principal trumpet at the Royal Scottish National Orchestra. Colm received numerous chamber music prizes and a scholarship to Aspen School of Music. On returning to Ireland, he began his professional career as a teacher and freelance trumpeter. He has performed with both RTÉ Orchestras, the Irish Chamber Orchestra, Ulster Orchestra, Orchestra of Saint Cecilia, Royal Scottish National Orchestra, BBC Scottish Symphony Orchestra, and Scottish Chamber Orchestra. He has played solo works with the Ruckart Chamber Orchestra, Irish Youth Symphonic Wind Ensemble, and the RIAM Symphony and Baroque Orchestras, the RTÉ Concert Orchestra, and the National Symphony Orchestra of Ireland. He has played many trumpet and organ recitals throughout Ireland and Scotland. And in April 1999, he joined the brass section of the RTÉ National Symphony Orchestra of Ireland as Co-Principal Trumpet. Colm, thank you very much for taking the time to be with us today, and we're really looking forward to the session, who we will start with Glenn Carr. And Glenn completed his Bachelor of Music Performance at the Royal Irish Academy of Music in 2020 and is currently studying on the Professional Mentorship course at the Academy. Glenn has worked as a freelance trumpet player with many Irish orchestras and recently worked with Irish National Opera on their live stream production of La Bohème. We suspect that Glenn may be very well known to Colm, as he has also worked this year as a trumpet teaching assistant to Colm's class at the RIAM. So you are very, very welcome today, Glenn, and we hope you enjoy the session. So we will now just leave the two of you to it, and we will see you in about 40 minutes. And we hope that both of you and all those listening outside and watching enjoy the session. Thank you.
Okay, as Nigel said, I know Glenn very well. We've been sort of colleagues for many years now, and I suppose over the last couple of months in particular, both of us have battled through Bach's Brandenburg Concerto No. 2. Has been, I suppose, one of the most difficult in his repertoire. So rather than, I think, let Glenn play solidly for 40 minutes, which I think is not going to do any of us any good, I think maybe the strategy today, we'll take the third movement for starters, and of course we don't have the rest of the ensemble where Glenn gets to rest, so maybe we'll get him to play a couple of phrases, and we'll stop. I might chat, or we might discuss a few sort of technical things here and there, so we're certainly going to sort of gap out the last movement. And I think if we maybe get sort of 20-25 minutes done on the last movement with a bit of chat, we'll move on to the difficult bits from the first movement, which Glenn is all too aware of. So Glenn, if you're ready to go,
Okay.
start off with the first phrase of the final movement.
Okay.
Yeah, terrific. Glenn, well deserved rest already. I think. I think the difficulty with this piece, apart from the obvious range thing, and I think we've both got our modern trumpets today, so possibly going to be a little bit more direct and a little bit louder than the older instruments that it was written for. Glenn, I don't want to put you on the spot on this, but I'm aware after reading your thesis, you have some background knowledge. And any ideas on the piece who is written for the sort of the components of the orchestration, so it's not just really a solo trumpet feature, as it were. So if you want to put anything in there, otherwise I'll add.
So it was written for Johann Schreiber, I think, who Bach was working with at Cohen. I'm open to be corrected on that. I'm not exactly sure. It's been a while since I've since I wrote that too. So yeah, concerto grosso with four soloists, not just the trumpet. So balancing will be an issue. Yeah.
Yeah, that was going to be my point there. While today in a masterclass setting, when you're starting off with a very difficult piece of music, it's going to be one of those things that's difficult to settle in. I think I was lucky enough to have a playthrough, certainly the last movement with the full ensemble. And it seemed, I know this might seem daft, it seemed a little bit easier sitting in the middle of the ensemble, but because we were able to you were able to hold back a little bit more and sit in with the oboe, the flute, the recorder, the violin, that sort of stuff, and just realize where your placement is. So if anybody's looking to do this, it's certainly have a look at the score. Indeed, apart from learning the extreme range of your trumpet, have a look at the score and just see where it fits in. So it's not completely a solo. Certainly the last movement, there are a lot of solo trumpet features. It's a quartet really, ritornello, and then we've the strings continue in the background. So I think that's important, sort of realizing where it sits. Glenn, would you like to move on to your next phrase, if you wouldn't mind?
Yeah. Do that. Okay.
Yeah, terrific. Yeah, okay, absolutely fantastic. I think we both know that the range thing is probably what excludes a lot of younger players from tackling this piece, or maybe even well established sort of players, and it does take sort of that dedication that you've sort of shown over the last while, and to certainly get the range intact. And again, it's a slightly different beast on a natural trumpet. I'm not under. I don't play the early instruments, although I did some in college, not particularly well. But I have played a little bit on natural trumpets, and it's a very different feel and it's a very different blow on the older instruments. Have you had any experience yourself with trying to play? Not necessarily this. I'm aware we don't currently have an F trumpet in the academy. Maybe that's something we can look at down the line. But have you tried like the natural trumpets and felt what the difference is between the natural trumpet and your modern piccolo trumpet?
Yeah, so there's definitely a huge difference, even between the C and the D side of the nats that we have in college. So anywhere into that clarina register is incredibly difficult. It requires so much more control. I think So even on a piston valve trumpet, though, this is, as you say, it's really up there, so tricky.
One comment on there, you just mentioned the control, even from a C to a D. The partial, of course, it's written because, in that higher register, because we can make tunes up there because the harmonic series, the partials are closer together, so we can get the steps. And of course, we've got difficult harmonic partials up there to hit. So that does take a lot of sort of accuracy practice, for sure. And there's a few of them that are notably very difficult. And maybe in articulation things, like as in louds and softs, the way that the strings might have bowings and twos or groupings and twos. I think there's probably a similar thing, with Baroque music, not only for matching, phrase and articulation of the other instruments, but possibly also in some cases to bring out the strong notes and the weak notes. So we're going to have notes that will sit nice and easy on a natural trumpet, and so we don't have that so much in the modern day piccolo trumpet, but maybe something to be aware of as well if we are taking sort of a modern day piccolo trumpet, even into with modern instruments. The articulation is still is something to have a think about. Glenn, that was fantastic. We might talk about your range, your strategy for building range in this. I maybe realise later on in the questions and answers session that there might be some younger players, that might want to know how did you develop your range? What was your strategy for getting to where you are today from, say, where you were in your first year in college? We might have a little bit chat about that, and if anybody wants to know any little hints on that. Again, I'm not a high note specialist, but I suppose we both developed a little bit of Brandenburg over the last while, so there's a tiny bit there. Maybe on another time we'll both go to a masterclass with somebody like Wayne Bergeron or something like that, or some of the great high piccolo players, modern day piccolo players. Okay, Glenn, I'm not going to stall you too much more. Let's skip just some of these at lower entries that sit in the middle of the orchestration, and just come back in on your next sort of higher phrase, if you wouldn't mind. Just take a few bars.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, we carry on there. Good. Yeah, fantastic. I love that. Yeah, great. Nice ornamentations there. Well done. Glenn, you had a masterclass recently, if I'm right, in the academy with the performance class, the Wednesday performance class that Dave Collins presents. From that class, did you take away anything with articulations? I know there's one in particular, which is probably what I'm leading you to. But from that class, was that a Baroque pitch, by the way?
No, it was with Dr. Justin Bland, who's an expert on natural trumpet, but I played it on the piccolo. Yes, he did talk about articulation, partly because my strategy for a lot of it was just to get the notes, basically. So he did talk about light and soft, and I think what you're alluding to is the terre terre or tiri tiri type of articulation on a group of four semis. So I'm kind of trying to incorporate as much of that as I can. But
have you tried that? I'm just, the way like sounds might, like tiri tiri might sound or go through the instrument differently, from different languages, with different sounds that we make. Have you tried that particular one, or I'm leading you to something else that a colleague of mine had studied with early music. But have you tried that on the instrument? The grouping in twos, sort of loud, soft, or strong, weak.
I find it slightly easier for a slur on the first two, so slur and then two detached, which I suppose is kind of fun. But Terry definitely really works on a nap, but I'm not exactly sure to the extent how well it will work on our teeny tiny trumpet.
Yeah, I have another one of these as well. I know that when you're practicing the first movement for that masterclass with Justin Bland, and I actually saw this on videos as well. If anybody's seen Friedman Immer playing the natural trumpet, you might notice, like if we check out the first movement of this, you see when he's doing the repeated notes, it's not like the repeated quavers, you know, where the ones that sit in the middle of it, like the who, you know, the ones I'm talking about. So it wasn't articulation as such, and maybe something we don't do in the modern day piccolo trumpet, but on a natural trumpet, for those repeated things, it was like a breath push, almost like what a flute player might do for a slow vibrato or something. It was a little bit of a breath pulse, if I remember rightly from what you were saying. We're probably not going to do that in the modern day piccolo trumpet, but it might be something that suits a longer trumpet, you know, because it's a longer piece of tube, and we have to keep that air moving, and probably we don't want to, we want to keep that air moving fast, and that little breath push just gives us that little buoyancy and flexibility. So that point, you know, I have to say it might be something I use in other circumstances, but I hadn't realized that, you know, before watching Friedman Immer and before listening to you talking about the masterclass you read, it wasn't something I'd really thought about. There was one other thing here. I'm not sure if my colleague and friend Graham Hastings is listening in. If you are, Graham, I have to send your son Connor a thank you for this, because he did give me a lesson on articulation sort of many years ago, sort of early instruments in the articulation. And when I was trying to, I'd read this Tiri thing in a few books, and I was trying to put it onto the instrument, you know, and it just wasn't going onto the modern day trumpet sort of the way, you know, I was going, oh, what is that, you know? But he sort of said to me, well, you know, when he went to study in Basel, I think it was, you know, he moved from Wales to Basel, and he talked about this, and he said he had to relearn how to articulate. Now, not my fault, really. I was a teacher for a while, but we're talking about sort of articulation for early instruments and performance practice, you know, going back to whatever, 16th, 17th, 18th century music, Renaissance, Baroque. And when I was describing this Tiri thing and asking him about this, he put it to me like this, you know, he said it's a language thing. We may not have it in the English language, maybe wherever we're from, sort of you know, let's say in Dublin, you know, if you're saying the name, we might say Therese, you know, if they're in Italy, they might go Therese, something like this. So if you listen to that sound, it's very different from what we might say here. So the pronunciation and what goes on sort of with the oral cavity and the pronunciation. So it was a tere. So it's a double tap tere. So it's that. So we might pronounce it. So if that's any use, it might be something we'll get somebody like Connor in, you know, at another time, and really go through that to help us with those little bits. Anyway, would you we didn't finish this, did we?
No, not yet. I can go to the last high entry.
This last phrase. Fantastic. We'll get you to try that one again. Is that all right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think, you know, I don't want to put you on the spot. I realize I'm talking and then sort of just suddenly getting you to play. I think if you're in the flow of the piece, you're going to be set up. So let's just set up that last section again. And just a little bit more poise, nice deep breath, get the air moving right. Yeah, fantastic. So Glenn, I suppose, look, a great playing. This is really superb, and I know for any player this is a real sort of mountain to climb. How long realistically? I'm going to ask you about sort of range and endurance development as an overall thing for eventually performing this piece. Realistically, if you were being asked to play this piece, how far do you think you are away from a full performance? Let's say you had a rehearsal which was twice through, and then a show or something. In realistic terms, do you think you're there? Do you think there's a tiny bit more to go? And on current sort of plotting your course, what do you reckon?
I think there's a tiny little bit more to go. The trick really is to get over the A's entry in the first movement, I think, for me, and not be completely wiped out by that. But I think pretty close. I can play up to that, and I can have a run of the third movement that's definitely passable. So it's just getting it all strung together, I think, is the thing. It's almost there. It's taking some time, but yeah.
It's one thing being able to play the phrases. I guess which is where you want to start. Where we're going to put phrases in isolation, and as you say, we're going to string it together. So surely the endurance is a thing. Now I could share my strategies. We'll probably talk about this later in the questions and answers. But for anybody listening today, what have you done over the last sort of 4 or 5 years to get from where you were as a young player coming in and your first year of your degree? What has been your strategy, like especially recently, to get from a level of here, there's my range. How did you increase your range, and how did you build your endurance? Probably everybody wants to know that, So you're a young player and you've done this already. So I guess there's loads of people who want to know this,
I think it's a matter of going at it. It's, I suppose, a piccolo approach. You have to know how to approach the piccolo trumpet first of all, and yeah, grateful for you and Jimmy setting me on the right course with that. But I think definitely it takes sometimes just putting it on your face and going until it maxes out. Or there's the corner stuff that we do. There's a multitude of approaches, I suppose, towards high notes, but it's just doing them, isn't it? And being
just come in on that. The corners book that Glenn was alluding to. There's a strand of this. I guess it comes from the Carmine Crusoe calisthenics approach. Which doesn't start, up in the stratosphere. It's just, getting your timing of your attack and gradually building your range and endurance. So it's the book you're talking about is the Alan Colin Corners. So it would have phrases not unlike maybe 24 different types of phrases that he just wrote in the book, but they gradually get higher and higher and higher. And I guess the idea, so it's called corners because I guess it's talking about developing your corners. So, it sits a mouthpiece on your lip and you stay there to failure. So it is an endurance approach. You're gradually getting higher and higher. So the book is called Corners by Alan Colin. That is one that we definitely used in the early stages. And I suppose, by then, getting to your Brandenburg and patching the phrases together. And as you say, sort of gradually piecing it together and adding endurance, you're going to this. I think one of our colleagues did this recently. Will Palmer had a performance of this recently, and we chatted a little bit about that. That was certainly one of his strategies. He could play all the notes, but it was getting the endurance get from start to finish. I think that's a major hurdle for this piece for sure. Okay, Glenn. Anything else you want to have a look at in the first movement? I think we've covered. If you think if there was one way forward with this, if there was one overarching thing, I would say it's getting a little bit more sort of strength in the body in reserve, so we're not absolutely to the pin of our collar trying to play that you're comfortable. You don't want to be too stressed out, so you want to have a little bit more sort of in reserve. And again, I would tell anybody to have a look at the Friedman Immer videos on YouTube, where it really looks effortless when he's playing, and there's just the control. He's sitting back and there's just the control of the fast air. So if anybody young player wants to see how it's really done on a natural trumpet, there's one version of it that I'm a great fan of. There are lots of other players out there for sure. Glenn, right, we're going to move from here to some of the tough little bits from the first movement. If you, how are you feeling about the higher notes today? Can I take you in on the higher phrase and let's see if any A's are working today?
okay. Okay. Sorry. I'll try one more time.
Yeah, do you want to don't do that first bit again? Let's just come straight in where you finished off, if you mind. Then we'll go back over it. Yeah, fantastic. So, I'm not sure if you're doing the little trick. We might share this with everybody. So Glenn is playing on a. You have a Shilky Piccolo, is that right?
Yeah, Shilky P54 Piccolo.
My Yamaha sort of longer model is quite battered at this stage, but I've done the same. I've taken this. I've taken the tuning slide out just like Glenn has on the fourth.
So you
And
don't need
that's on, yeah, and hopefully we don't lose it. Uh, there's not much of a difference in sound. It differs from trumpet to trumpet for sure. Um, but I'm not sure if anybody sort of listening in noticed the difference that A had too much of a difference in quality. I think in the middle of an ensemble, you're certainly not going to notice. Maybe in a practice room, especially if it's a dry room, you might notice a little bit more. But I think in a resonant acoustic, you're not going to notice. But certainly playing that upper note with the slide is a little trick. It's a modern day trick for this piccolo trumpet. We didn't have this really on the old natural trumpets, whether or not it was a tone like a semitone lower or not. And of course, today the C trumpets made. If anybody wants to have a look at some of the websites, we might be able to find a C trumpet, concert pitch trumpet. So that note then becomes a G, an open G, or whatever, if you want to do it on charted fingers. But maybe it's a slightly easier note to slot. That note on some instruments can be a little bit temperamental, the A. So we might do it there. We might do third. Yeah, would you mind trying another version?
I'll try it on third and see if it works.
On the last sort of the pick up to the last two bars of that. So just the repeated arpeggio a little bit, if you don't.
I can do the full thing.
Yeah, sure.
Not quite as there as the slide trick.
About 90% there on your third valve. So you can see that little trick, if you're just on the verge of that being 100%, it's a nice little trick that can sort of get people over the line to help perform this. And again, as we said earlier, have a look at some of the really established sort of piccolo and natural trumpet players, and just see. There's a lot of them will play this quite effortless, so we have to figure out how to get that efficient up in the high register. We might have mentioned over the last few weeks a couple of ideas for that. Maybe practicing something like the Herbert Clark number two, sort of study number two, to get the flow, to learn to sit low and not overcompensate, not overblow. Or even putting some of our B flat trumpet techniques onto the piccolo trumpet to get the same sort of movement. So maybe our lip slur ideas, either from the Charles Cohn Advanced Lip Flexibilities or Arbin. Would you mind before we go, take more from this first movement? Would you mind demonstrating a little bit of this for me, Glenn? Do you know the Clark?
Yes.
Yeah. We're just going to go across one or two breaks on the instrument. I will give you a nice easy one for starters, like an F major. And we're looking for flow. Sort of that nice air. Imagine you were singing through the instrument. So try not to tighten up too much. Try keep it singing. Because we have to last a long time in this, so we keep it singing. Right. So maybe just give me the F major with a nice sort of nice full sound. And we'll break. I like the yawn shape type breathing for these, especially just to get the rib cage like a bellows. I'm not sure if it's called higher breathing, whatever, but we want to set up sort of more expansion. Someday it depends. I know this is the other thing we can do is sometimes we can hardly breathe and we get nice compression. Sometimes we take too deep a breath that brings the lips quite far apart. there's all sorts of different things. And I certainly like to set up. I like to set up the air ready. So if I'm doing these sort of things, I'll maybe play. Sorry, I'll demonstrate something, or try to anyway. So I'll do that one to warm up, and I'll maybe just take it a little bit higher. So just trying to get the nice sort of air sort of flowing through the instrument. Give me a second, see if this works. So I'll bring it up a little bit more, going across the breaks, maybe take a B flat, you know, so it's going a break of a C to a D or whatever. I'll take in C major, so now we're taking the breaks, you know, we've got E's and G's at the top. So those sort of things where we get the same sort of airflow as our B flat trumpet. And maybe try pull those back again, do them nice and soft, and also put the articulation on. So, okay, Glenn, would you play one or two of those sort of higher ones to me and just really get the air moving through those? Right, rest out for a second. So maybe with this, you know, we can pull it back a little bit, get the breathing. We could maybe try, as I say, some of our lip slur things, you know, so we're getting the extra little sort of breath pulse for some of the upper notes. That, if you wouldn't mind, I don't want to put you on the spot with this, but maybe we could try just a few sort of lip slur ideas, the same way as we would on our B flat trumpet, but just with a little bit more speed. So I might take you up sort of to the like an A major, B flat major, a C major at the top. So we're trying to get those sort of thirds, major, minor thirds at the top. I'll give you an example. So I'll do it sort of an A major one. B flat. C. I just try to get those upper notes the same way as we would in our B flat trumpet. Terrific. Okay, so I think as well we're both sort of powering into this a little bit, which is probably not a good strategy for getting through a longer piece like Brandenburg 2. So again, in the practice room, it's something that we want to get a little bit more lightness of approach, be able to sit back a little bit and to get that air moving with slightly less going for it sort of effort, if you know what I mean. So I think that's where we're going next with this in the practice room. You know, now that we got our notes, we got power through the notes and everything, I think we have to learn to sit back as well. So you can practice flow study, like, you know, try these, like the Herbert Clark ones, you know, bring them down to piano and just get those little sort of pulses of air where you need them, you know, to get your next notes. Before we sort of do one or two more phrases, have you any other thoughts on you know, how you got to this point as regards sort of building up your technique, sort of embouchure exercises in particular? How do you think about moving the air? How have you got the air to the speed that you have sort of today in compression, or is there tongue level things you do? So any other physical strategies that might come up later that you have sort of used so far?
I think the breakthrough with this kind of for me was air speed and support. I think my face was probably pretty strong already from previous years, however many years I've been playing, and really just learning to support, I suppose. We've loads of breathing tools, breathing toys. Like everybody, lots of trumpet players will have these, breathing bag or the flow ball things. I think that they're really, really useful. And I find when I do maybe 10 minutes breathing to start the day, it really, the difference between having not done that or having done that is day and night. So breathing really helps with this.
Yeah, that's actually, while you mentioned that on breathing, like probably everybody knows, maybe not everybody knows, you know, it took me a long time to realize, you know, but I suppose higher notes are essentially faster air. Doesn't always mean louder, you know. You might have to play a high C double piano or a double forte, but the air speed or the vibration, you know, standing wave that vibrates is at a particular frequency, you know. So it is sort of recognizing that, and then we have to develop it all dynamic. Just while you're talking about sort of devices, you know, like I kind of first say, like we don't need them. If you understand that it's developing fast air, we can do exercises without going out and buying devices. In saying that, when I was a younger player, I did go out and buy devices. I've got one here. which looks like something you might pump the car tire with or something like that, and I've a few of those, few sort of funny ones, but this is one that I bought years ago, and I found this not in before the internet was actually up and running. So I'm not that old, but it was ages ago, and I saw this in a jazz catalog, and it was an advert for accessories, and there's a thing called a breath master for sort of wind brass players and singers, So I'll hold this up to the screen just to show you what I mean. So it's sort of like that, and we have a sort of gauge. Now, it's not a scientific gauge, but it just gives us numbers 1 round to 10. It's not going to give us a scientific thing of how many, exact volume and speed per square inch, all that. The pressure is not going to give us that, but it gives us just a visual of where we're going. So I can set this out more like a loud note, or more like a trombone tuba volume, or I can set it like a softer note for a piccolo trumpet. And if anybody listening can see that, so we can actually sort of strategize and see where we're going with this, and we can try different air speeds. So something like that. And so you don't need one of these sort of devices, but if we're trying to get faster air and we're trying to get from point A to point B in like 3 months or 6 months, we do have to learn to move the air a little bit quicker. So you're dead right on that. So there's going to be various strategies for that. But yeah, it's just about learning to speed it up, just getting the idea of airspeed, and it doesn't have to be volume. Volume adds its difficulties. After that, it's more difficult. Higher and louder is more difficult than higher and softer usually. But you can just see, if I just blow through that, you'll see the gauge move, and we can learn. I can set that to different sort of levels. You can do exercises like a round robin, like 1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 4, all that, and we can just learn more breath control exercises. And we can set it to a feel that's a little bit more similar to a piccolo trumpet. There's more resistance. Or a B flat trumpet. Yeah, so that was all. So it's just learning to work on your breath control for this piece. Glenn, could I take you, before we run out of time, would you mind playing me a little bit of the fanfare sort of section at the start, and just taking in the trill, and then just the first sort of higher phrase, and then we'll call it a day on that, unless you've got questions after that yourself. Right, let's try that. Thanks, Glenn. Perfect. That's really fantastic. That's really fantastic. Is there anything we've missed out? Do you think there's anything important, anything you struggle with in particular, or something you want to share with the piece before we finish up?
Not really. It's, as I say, just the thing. The next thing I think for me to do is to stitch it all together and get that control over it. That it's just really, really comfortable. Which is obviously easier said than done.
Just before, maybe this is something, as I say, might come up later with some players. Could you give me 1 or 2 or 3 small points on how you got your embouchure developed to be able to hold that sort of level, that speed in the air, and any basic things you can share with us there, what you've done?
I think you're definitely the expert. It's a matter of, I suppose, just playing, practicing as much as you can, and in that register. Yeah, that's it. Practice in that register and get your airspeed up, and that's it.
If a question, if just on top of that, but we can practice in that register, and we can sort of hurt the lips as well, which is something we've all done it. We're all in sort of stressful situations where we just don't quite have the resistance here, or we've tightened up, and we'd much prefer if we'd done another 2 years practice to get stronger corners, you know. But we've all been in the situations where we've pressed on the front of the lip a little bit too much and it swells up. So just in terms of building resistance, we're both doing these things, but the little flutter tongue exercise works very well. I think we both agree with that. If anybody doesn't know about that, ask me about that later. But when we add flutter tongue, it certainly will engage the structure here a little bit more. Don't take my word for it. I've seen this in many books. Most recently for Stamro, Shape Up for Trumpet, right? And Roger Webster's book as well, sort of corner book. So that strategy of adding flutter tongue, there's many other ways as well. There's devices like the Pete, the embouchure trainer, or we can do isometrics for the face if we have to. I know quite a well-known player who travels the world playing Brandenburg, and he will do isometrics, you know, or calisthenics, you know, for, you know, just targeting the facial muscles. So that's maybe something that'll come up a bit later. If anybody wants to know a little bit about that, we could discuss it. Glenn, I think, are we coming to our time?
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we're at our time there. So maybe Nigel's going to come back on. Glenn, I just want to say congratulations today. All your work over the last while trying to sort of bring this piece up to speed. It's a real hurdle to climb, and you've done a great job. So I can't do much more with this piece. You know, we have to send you off to a real specialist, especially with Baroque trumpet, I think is the next thing as well. So congratulations for coming on today and playing that piece. Extremely brave and a great performance. So I just want to say well done, Glenn. That was great. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Well done and terrific playing. And thank you, Colm, for your comments and your insight. I found that fascinating as one of the world's worst ex-trumpet players myself. How he can get that quality on particularly the high notes is beyond me. But anyway, thank you very much. And just to remind people that are watching that if you would like to feed comments into our chat boxes on YouTube and Facebook, we will relay these to Colm for the Q&A session at the end of the masterclass. We will have our second participant now, and that is Aileen Lennon. Hi, Aileen, you're very welcome.
Hi, how are you?
And Aileen is 19 years old and from County Carlow, and she has been playing the trumpet for almost 7 years now and started studying at TU Dublin this year. So a very different year for you to start your studies, but hopefully, you know, the next and subsequent years will be more of the sort of true college experience, but we hope you're enjoying your course of study there. So Aileen and Colm, I will leave you for the session. And just to remind people that after Aileen, we will take a very short 3-minute break. And after that, we will have our third participant followed by our Q&A. So thank you very much. Enjoy the session.
Hi, Aileen. Very nice to meet you today.
Meet you too.
So I'm really looking forward to this. I see it doesn't look like you're in your home. Are you in a classroom or in a school, or where are you today?
I'm up in Grange Gorman on the new TU campus in one of the ensemble rooms.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, it already sounds like from the speaking voices, great sound there. So
it is, the acoustic is really, really nice.
That's great. That's going to help us on Zoom. I know we've all struggled, you know, sort of playing in front rooms and bedrooms over the last year. And I know for an awful lot of players, it's been very, very difficult. And I know they've done a great job today, sort of getting the sound out as best as we can. So I'm looking forward to this. Okay, Aileen. So your piece today is, we have the concert Waltz. Is that what you're playing?
Yeah, that's what I'm doing today.
Okay. Would you like to just go straight in and go for it?
Why not? Yeah.
Yeah, great. Okay, let's take a little break there. Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely great. I enjoy that. Do you know much about the piece, or do you know much about Thorvald Hansen, or where the piece came from, or
I know that he's a Danish composer and he played trumpet himself, and that he wrote a lot of pieces for, well, at the time, cornet and piano. But one of the kind of first to do like solo stuff for the trumpet rather than just little bits and pieces in orchestral works.
yeah, he had quite a lot of people, multi instrumentalist. I think that the sonata that he wrote was one of the first, sort of 19th century, sort of coming away from all the urban sort of variations and whatever's happening in America, all that sort of stuff. So we had really the first sort of sonata sort of for the trumpet, and then we had these sort of other pieces like the concert was. Now it says on the top of this sort of it can be done in clarinet either, So he was a multi instrumentalist, and he would write for his friends, So he's got lots of, and he played all sorts of instruments. So I'm wondering if the writing of saying cornet and clarinet maybe was a way to get his music out there a little bit more people could have a look, because it was B flat as well, possibly. Um, Now, just we'll have a little chat about the thing. So first of all, great start. And I really got the sense of the waltz here, and I love the way you sort of you gradually sort of introduce the sort of the waltz tempo. You sort of held it back, you held it back, you held it back, and then you sort of built it up. I think it's one of those fun pieces, and we have to get the style of that waltz and sort of the ebb and flow in tempo. It's a bit of fun. On your first page, coming up to the B flats, great control. Sort of, it's not easy, to get up to that register and articulate those B flats and get clean on a B flat trumpet. So lovely control there at the top. Now, can I ask you, sort of, I'm not sure if we have the same copy of this. I might have a different edition. But on mine, we get across to the second page, where we get to the sort of poco lentos and that sort of stuff. Is there anything here that you find difficult in that section? There was something I heard, maybe in terms of flexibility or that sort of thing, or
Yeah, sometimes, well, just when I first started learning it, the key change and all the accidentals were really messing with me, so I had to really get the fingers down for that. But sometimes, yeah, trying to control my air going up to the higher notes, I think too much about it, and I'm like, oh, that's a high note, I'm not going to be able to hit it, when it's
yeah,
just air that needs to be pushed up to it.
yeah. Look, you put your finger on a few really important, a few key points here. When we go to learn a piece, first off, we're probably want to play it start to finish straight away and just get the piece known. And of course, we all know we have to do the breakdown. No matter how detailed, we have to go on that. So the strategies here, if we go in the sort of the sort of poco lento section, I mean, you could literally just put the metronome on, like subdividing really fast, and just do your fingers. So you're in a slow tempo, like ba dum bum bim ba, something like this, where you're in a slow tempo, where the fingers will move very fast and very rhythmic. With the metronome, I've seen a few things lately on this. I'm not sure if I mentioned earlier about the Carmine Crusoe method.
Yeah.
Now, there's a few great exponents of this on the trumpet. Well, lots of them, but with Laurie Frink, who had a great career, sort of big band and classical player and teacher, and sort of brought out sort of many sort of research documents and doctoral studies and all that on trumpet playing. But both Laurie Frink, who wrote a book called Flexus, by the way, I'd urge you to get a hold of that. And also, let me see if I get this name right. There's a famous French horn player that teaches at Juilliard. I think it's Julie Linsman, I think her name is, maybe Metropolitan Opera. And another Carmine Crusoe student. And what I noticed from watching her videos was attention to detail with practicing with a metronome for precision. And not only practicing for precision in all the movements and the coordinations we have to do, practicing very, very slow, but getting them very, very accurate. But also as a strategy for getting the brain out of the way and not thinking, and getting rid of nerves and that sort of stuff. So you were sort of alluded to thinking about it a little bit too much. So that is a strategy as well. If we stick on a metronome and just concentrate on the beat, it can help us put everything in its place. And then of course we just think of the musical performance.
Yeah.
There's another strategy there as well. I don't know if you've heard of any of the works of Arnold Jacobs, the Chicago. Okay, so we have that. We have that approach, which is song and wind, which is basically you have to understand deeply what you want to play, how, and then breathe and deliver it. So again, we can't think of all the different coordinations right at that time. So we just have to hear the music and play. So maybe in that section, that in the poco lento, there might be a couple of ways we can do the breakdown and really get precise on our valves and hear the pitch. And when we really learn it, we have the technicalities of that, and we just sing it through the trumpet.
Yeah.
So you're bringing that performance out, so it's undiluted. Now, yeah. So terrific playing. Really enjoy that. Before we go back to and do a further breakdown, would you mind picking this up sort of where we left off? After the couple of bars rest, and let's run from the tempo 1 through to the end, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah.
Terrific. Well done again. Okay, lots of great playing there. Lots and lots of great playing. And let's work backwards.
Okay.
Let's take from the poco vivo at the end, your last sort of 4 or 5 lines in there. There's a couple of little things in here. I might get you to just play a couple of sections working for a few different sort of technical points, right? With Zoom, forgive me for this if I'm completely wrong, right? But we've all been working with Zoom and online platforms over the last while, and we don't always hear fully what the qualities are on Zoom. But one thing I'm mulling over sort of when here today is articulation. And I'm wondering about this. Sometimes it needs, impact if we have accents, and sometimes it needs more lightness. A waltz is more of a play for that, and we need lightness. So practicing different types of articulations. Again, I for that sort of thing, I would put you to the Herbert Clark Technical Studies for the Cornet. I don't know if you know that book.
I do, yeah. I don't have it yet.
Yeah, that's one. Now that's out of copyright for years and years and years and years. So it is something you could get a copy from IMSLP.
Yeah.
We have to go out and buy it for sure, but this would be also a legitimate way to read a copy. So go onto the Petrucci Music Library, and it's out of copyright, so you're perfectly okay to grab a copy of it that way. So ask your teacher, and it's definitely something that most players will use. You'll see it's a book that's used in conservatories worldwide. And it stood the test of time for obvious reasons. It's about sort of playing with efficiency and flow, making a good sound. And the idea is that you mostly slur the passages when you're really comfortable in the flowing. Then we add different types of articulation.
Okay.
So on this last section, let's pick a few sort of passages here. Just start the poco vivo again. And we're trying to get that sharpness or precision in the articulation. So just play a few bars. Just play the 2 bars at the start. Okay, that sounds good. When we transition, getting the center of the notes. Just do that one more time, and I want you to play in crotchets. So give me a nice strike on the tongue. And it's going to be, let's go around by this speed in crotchets. 1, 2, 3, 4. And we're looking for really center of the pitch, really precise sort of articulation on the note. You know, get every note in the center like you were singing. You have to sort of feel it in the sort of oral cavity, as it were. We have to feel it in here, that we have the right shape for the note. Imagine you were singing it. Let's just play those, whatever it is, 10, 12 notes, just really, really slow with crotchets. Let's try that.
Each note as a crotchet itself, or with just
that speed on each note. 1, 2, 3. Give you time to think and strike the note. Let's try that. That's it. Ta 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 ta. The E flat needs to be a little bit darker. Ta 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 ta. Let's just do that one more time. So that's something we can work on in the practice room, although it might seem like we're really breaking down very, very far, but do that. All the qualities that you need to be a very fine player, break it down, to the nth degree, so perfect sound, perfect resonance, get a perfect attack, have you, the attack that you're looking for, is it tongue, are you going ta, do you have that sort of spring back, do you have that bell-like thing, like really precision, center of your pitch, always in the center of your note, so we're not squeezing sharp or flattening low. We have our synchronizations, as your fingers move in exactly the same time as everything else. So if you put those on a metronome and practice very, very, very slow and be very tough on yourself with those, you'd be surprised how, working on this piece with that strategy of a really intensive breakdown will bring on your other pieces as well. Okay. Now let's do that. This time, carry on. Just take it that phrase, and let's move. Go back to your original speed, and let's move into the next phrase. It's fantastic. That sounds great. That really sounds great. I enjoy that. Okay, great. Now, there's one more obvious thing that jumps out on the page, and this is probably for most trumpet players or any brass players listening today, and it's intervals. It's jumping intervals at speed. Okay, so it's another thing we have to do. Could I bring you to the octave Ds for starters? Would you mind playing me a low D for a minim, and then jump to the upper D for a minim as well? And we're going to just repeat that round a few times. And really just think of the pitch. And it doesn't matter if one or two goes wrong. That's where we get better. When we realize we messed it up, I'm like, I'm after making a mess. But don't beat yourself up about that. That's somewhere we can get better. So we've now got something to practice. Certainly, I think of it like that. I really enjoy the struggle element of messing something up and trying to figure out how to get even those two notes better. So let's try that, and even better if you mess it up, but I know you won't. Now, pressure's on. So I want you to imagine just singing that low note as a minim, and then strike the upper D, and then repeat that round a few times until you get the feel for the jump. Let's try that. So octave Ds with minims.
oh god, sorry.
Now, before I introduce something else here, let's speed that up. Ta, te, ta. You can go now. I'm not going to introduce vowel sounds. That's up to you. Everybody's different, right? So however you do it, let's just in crotchets now. So that speed. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now let's go into quavers. Again, so bam, bam, beam, bam, bam, somewhere in there. Okay, I'll count you 4 in. I know there's a delay with Zoom and everything, but I'll just count 4. And when you hear me finish in the right time, you start. I'll count you 4 in though. Okay, here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, so you can put this on the metronome, and bring out something like that. Like we've an octave there, and actually the next bar, the F to F, is an octave as well. but in context they come in the middle of a whole big phrase, so we don't have time, to do that practice in the middle of the phrase and everything. We have to just have that done in the practice room. So I would bring those sort of drills, as fast as you get them, and look for as close to perfection as you can. So be tough on yourself, for those octave things, and really nail them. It's one of the difficult things on a brass instrument. We've only got 3 valves, and we're trying to slot all those notes into their position. So that slotting thing, the accuracy of pitch and slotting is definitely something in a lot of pieces, Now, and it'll be the same. It will be the same with the F. There's one more thing. You're reaching those notes great, so there's no problem with that. You just speed it up, and you get more accuracy. So you're confident. Then when you go to perform, it's not something that I think is going to go wrong. It's just, yeah, I can do this. And then once you can do it, you feel confident. Your performance is better. I'm going to bring in another idea in case anybody's asking. If I'm really struggling with that forever, I'm not bringing the air from the bottom note to the top, I might do a mouthpiece glissando sort of thing there. It was something I was actually going to do in another section earlier on. We might get to that in a second. But just here, actually, let's do this with the Fs. So I'm going to get you to, let me just picture. So on the octave Fs that's coming up, I'm going to get you to do a little mouthpiece glissando. I'll demonstrate first, right? So imagine I'm singing through the mouthpiece, so I'm leading with the air, and I'm going to get everything else to follow. So number one is I'm thinking of the sound I want to make, but I'm going to do a sort of a glissando with a really sort of thick air, and go very slowly between the notes. So the movement from at this point is very slow, actually, from low to high. I'm purposely doing that to bring the air to the upper note, so there's no disconnect. So that's what I'm doing first. So let me just get the pitch. So I'll just get you to copy me on this. So I'll play maybe 2 beats at the bottom, do glissando, and hold on the top. And I'll go again. Can you do that for me? Yeah, that's it. So imagine you're singing and really lead with the air like you were singing. So there's no disconnect from with your range. The air and embouchure are the air and the lips are always always connected.
Yeah.
On a string. I think that's I think you're mostly doing that, but just on those octaves, just that gave away. Okay, let's practice the Fs now, and then we'll move on to a different section. So give me octave Fs, the same as we did before. Let's do this with minims for starters, and you go in your own time. So it's a personal thing, isn't it? It's about how does it feel? How do I get that note sounding great? And was I a little bit below? Was I a bit on top? And it's a personal feel for just finding exactly the sweet point and the hit point of the note. So it's definitely put a metronome on those things, and you get your timing. Let's bring that to crotchets around about this speed, and I'll count you 4 in on this. Okay, so crotchets: 1, 2, 3, 4. And then etc. Right? You in your own time, you bring that round into semiquavers, notch it up faster on the metronome. So you have that. It's now a strong part of your technique. So that was something once or twice that I noticed. Can I move up to see the poco lento, the first poco lento?
Yeah,
would you mind? Yeah, would you mind playing through from there one more time down to your 7 bars rest? Would that be okay? Yeah, thank you. Terrific. Okay, great. You already fixed yourself the top part of that with a couple of notes here and there. That was much better. When we get to the sort of second poco lento, the first one is sort of mezzo forte, and we have a few dynamic sort of changes there. When we get to the second poco lento, now look, this is something I have found in my own teaching is something it's difficult to pick up online, which is dynamic contrast. Much easier live, as we all know. But still, I think having practicing a larger range of dynamics.
Okay, yeah, that's something I've been trying to work on with it, making it more obvious.
Yeah. So now, not to be sort of blasé about this at all, but and I might be making this sound simplistic, but if you want to play soft, practice soft. Play at the edge of your ability.
Okay.
If you know what I mean, don't say now your loud stuff is great. It's very very powerful, but just the soft stuff. I would do a little bit more practice on the soft practice. Maybe I use a little bit of the Schlossberg sort of the first 4, 5, 6 pages in the Schlossberg, and I know there's dynamics written in there, which but I think the idea of the book is use the material in there and sort of change the dynamic. Do you know the Schlossberg book, the Daily Drills? And
I haven't heard of it, no.
okay, that's it. Max Schlossberg. Now I know, like all the exercise in the book, for instance, he it's not his publication. It's compiled elsewhere. But some of the exercise that he taught to his students, similar to the James Stamp book. But just if you're using something like the Schlossberg Daily Drills and Long Tones, it's maybe something we can chat if you want. We might put in a link later. Where to pick that up. It's another one you might get. It could be out of copyright. I'm not sure, but definitely one to buy. Definitely one to have in your trumpet bag. I'll use this all the time, and especially for sort of long tone practice, for soft practice, sort of for attack practice. And making differences and extremes of dynamic. So what's on the page, use the notes for sure, but change the dynamics to suit what you need. So it sounds like a little bit of soft practice, so I would do sort of long tones, tail them out to 0, that sort of stuff, and breath attacks where it's just air to lip. It's something to think about. So you can see these sort of ideas in lots of sort of trumpet study books out there. So it's worthwhile. Keep reading, keep listening to players, and we need differences of attack, how to attack notes with a different sound, all the different things that you'd be expected to do, in pieces. So here we definitely need a piano. We need a sort of sweet sort of piano sound, and some of the notes have a little accent, in piano. So we need that attention to detail, I think, which you're only going to get from saying, right, this is something I find personally difficult, so I'm going to turn this into something that I'm good at. So you go into the practice room and you practice soft, and you practice soft attacks, and you just do it like that. So there, I would definitely look for that. Let's just pick it up at that second poco lento there, and let's try to bring the sound down just a little bit smaller, a little bit sweeter, and just give a little sort of miniature bell effect on that first note. It's like it's just one of those, and a nice sweet sound. So just risk it a tiny bit, just for today, if you wouldn't mind.
Sorry.
See that last phrase there where we jump from the B flat to the G? I want you to do that again, and imagine you're singing that. Imagine just a really big deep breath, and imagine you're singing through that, and just sing. Let's just do those 1, 2, 3 bars there from the B flat to the G jump. Imagine you're singing, right? No trumpet talk, just singing. Let's try that.
Sorry, that was rubbish. Sorry.
One more time. It's great. So I would encourage you as well, you know, when you started off today at the start, I'm after getting in the way a little bit. It was beautiful sound, you know, and you were imagining, I could hear the waltz, I could hear it all there. There was great trumpet stuff, and you were in the music, you know. And sometimes when we do the breakdown, you know, we're practicing various techniques. We can get away from that. We can isolate little things and put them into nice, neat little boxes, and it all gets too confusing. So especially when it gets to that, when you get out of the breakdown and you get back into performance mode. So there is a switch, you know, I'm performing now, I'm singing through the trumpet. There is that switch for sure that we all must have, you know. So the practice is done in the practice room. And then also in the practice, we do our run throughs, you know, visualizing, I'm going to play this like that. So again, I would say, you know, if you get your hands on any of the Arnold Jacobs stuff or the Christian Steenstrup or whoever else is going into these sort of you know, performance, mental techniques and performance strategies. The Arnold Jacobs one is great, Song and Wind. I would encourage you to have a read of that. And it's just, you know, hear the music and play, you know. So it's that type of thing. So I'd encourage you to do that. Now, okay, you know, before we run out of time, how are the chops? You still feeling fresh?
Yeah.
Okay. Would you take it again from the top?
Yeah.
Let's go back to the top. And what I'm looking for this time, forget we're here, if that's possible. And I want you to imagine you're just singing through the trumpet and enjoy the music. No matter what, just go for it and enjoy it. Let's try that. How are the chops? Is there more left?
Yeah, small bit, yeah.
I'll finish it out in a second.
Okay.
There's one more thing. We're obviously missing. You know, it's been very difficult, I think, for all musicians. You know, over the last while, and I suppose things like Zoom and online platforms have been a great savior. You know, for jobs and students to keep continuing. And we've probably found it in the early stages probably hard to get together with accompanists and that sort of stuff. Certainly in the early stages. Maybe I don't know. Maybe you're back up. And did you have a chance to run this through with piano?
Yeah, a few times.
Okay, and in context, like if you listen to the piece a couple of times, you would have known sort of what to expect and that sort of stuff. But it might feel different in context, doesn't it, when you get together with another musician? And I think that's the most enjoyable part, you know, as well, when we're playing music with each other. Now, where I didn't have you know, not playing in groups and everything, I have to say I did really miss that. But over the last year, I did find now not a replacement, but something to help me along. There's lots of accompaniment tracks, for instance, that you can buy or get custom tracks, or you can find stuff up on YouTube. I'm not sure if this particular one is up there. I know the sonata is up there, the Hanson sonata is up there, and the only drawback is you have to go mostly at the tempo of the track that's there. So there's not much ebb and flow unless you're brilliant with tech, and you can throw it into a sort of Logic Pro Tools or GarageBand and change your tempos to suit yourself. But if you're looking for that, when you want context, I would definitely say have a look at the backing tracks pretty soon, and put it into context of where you sit, in this piece, listen to the accompaniment. So that's just one more little piece of advice there. As much as you can, realize where you sit, in whatever the ensemble is. We've only got like 1 or 2 minutes left. I want to hear you play to the end if you wouldn't mind, but let's run it from let's skip the section we did some work on. Let's run from the Poco Vivo to the end if you wouldn't mind. Well done. Terrific finish. Right. Absolutely smashing playing. Look, it was a pleasure sort of help you through this today. I know I probably said a lot, and even if we land 1 or 2 ideas, or there's some way forward, on any of those little ideas, if you remember any of them, not sure if we recorded this, but I hope I was in some way help with a few little strategies.
Definitely.
Okay, so well done. Thanks a million. I think are we going back to Nigel?
That's right. Thank you, Aaron. Well done. Lovely playing. And again, Colin, for your comments and insight. So just to remind people that we're now going to take a very short break. Before we do that, just like to remind you that if you want to pose any questions to Colin at the end of the masterclass, there will be a short Q&A section after our third participant. So please do so in the chat sections of our Facebook and YouTube channels. So we are now going to take just a very short 3-minute break. So we do encourage you to come back for the remainder of the masterclass, and we will be with you very, very shortly. Thank you. Well, hello everybody and welcome back. And we're delighted to continue this masterclass with our third and final participant, Orla O'Driscoll. Orla, you're very, very welcome, and we hope that you enjoy the session. Orla is from Clonakilty in West Cork, and she began her studies on trumpet with Ger Condon at the age of 8. She's currently in the third year at MTU Cork School of Music under the tutelage of Vivian Johnson and Pamela Stainer. She was a member of the National Youth Orchestra of Ireland and is currently a member of the Cork School of Music Symphony Orchestra, Cork School of Music Jazz Band, and the Cork Philharmonic Winds. So you're very, very welcome, Orla, and we will leave you now with Colm, and in about 40 minutes we will reconvene for our Q&A session. So if anybody has questions, please do put them in our YouTube and Facebook chat sections. Thank you, Orla and Colm, and we'll see you shortly.
Nice to meet you again. Was it maybe 3-4 years ago we crossed paths, something like that?
Yeah, it was, yeah.
Yeah, I remember for sure. So you've brought the Haydn trumpet concerto with you today.
I did, yeah.
Right, okay. I can't wait. Right, I'm just going to let you just get straight to it.
Okay.
Wow, terrific. Well done. Okay. Some amazing playing in there, some great sort of technical achievements in there, a lot of great stuff in there. Well done. Can I just say you were unbelievably brave to bring your B flat trumpet along today and play on that, you know. So we could all take a lesson from that. Yeah, so congratulations on that for starters. Yeah, a lot of skill demonstrated there. Of course, we do have to play this on the B flat trumpet, maybe sometimes, certainly in teaching and maybe in certain job opportunities that come up, there might be a requirement or they might specify B flat trumpet. Maybe in some German orchestral auditions, on the German trumpets, they might specify to play the first movement of the Haydn on a B flat rotary trumpet. So we do have to learn it if we're ever going to go down, and maybe some other positions elsewhere might talk about that a little bit. Do you on just on talking to that before we get into a few little technique things or musicality? Your decision for playing on the B flat trumpet is because you want to play on the B flat trumpet, or at the moment you don't have access to a good E flat trumpet? I'm just curious.
I just wanted to play it on B flat. I think, yeah, I just wanted to play it on B flat. There was no much thought.
Yeah, do you prefer the sound on the B flat trumpet actually?
I think I do. I don't think a lot of other people do, but I quite like it.
I know what you mean. I know what you mean. And in terms of intonation, if we can get around the technical difficulties that might be a little bit more tricky on the B flat trumpet, intonation might be easier. It takes a while to settle into the sound and the intonation on the E flat trumpet. It takes a bit of practice. Yeah, so well done that's the first thing. So great on that. So do you know any background to the concerto? You probably have done a little bit of research, I'm guessing, but any research you can share with us.
So Joseph Haydn, he wrote it for Anton Weidinger, who was like the trumpet virtuoso at the time. So he wrote it for him to play because he was after developing like a keyed trumpet. So this is like one of the first pieces written for a keyed trumpet. So it's a pretty big deal.
Yeah, that's it. I tried to play a keyed trumpet maybe on two occasions, but both in Scotland, where we had Crispin Steele Perkins sort of bring along his whole collection of old instruments and do sort of so we had Crispin Steele Perkins bring along the collection of instruments, and we all got a chance to try. Now this is pre-COVID, this is before we knew it was dangerous to be sort of, who knew, but all the students were getting up one after each other and trying all the instruments, and like what I thought was a very, very difficult, coming from your modern day trumpet, to try and play, a keyed sort of bugle or whatever that instrument was, a very different instrument, right? And, I suppose with basically, they found where the nodal points were, to get from the old natural trumpet to try and get the chromatic notes. They found the nodal points, put holes in them and put stuff like flute keys or something, but each change of note brought up a semitone or whatever, it had to be done. It was a one finger thing. We didn't have combinations of valves like we do today, so, it came out before the piston valve and all that. So a very different instrument, probably not as loud as our modern day instruments, I suppose, depending on the player. And you're going to have some funny notes, some vented notes, going to sound a little bit softer in that. But in saying that, now I think also when the piece was written, it didn't get performed, from what I believe, for about 4 years after its composition, because it probably took, after sort of commissioning the piece, whatever, maybe Anton Weidinger, from what I read, anyway, who knows, it maybe needed the 4 years to prepare the piece. It has an exceptionally high degree of difficulty, which you demonstrated all the difficult things today. So again, congratulations on that. On your B flat trumpet, and in what you've played so far, did you find any technical? Were there things that went really well today? Were there a couple of moments that didn't go quite the way you wanted, or are there technical challenges that you want to sort of ask me about in any of those passages?
Yeah, I struggle a lot towards the end when it goes like like I always slip off it, going down and back up again. So that's
Yeah.
what I'm struggling with, is those, and to like keep it steady tempo, because I tend to rush massively.
Yeah, there is that. you have now. Look, we have. I don't know which edition you're playing from today. Some of the editions might in that section. You're talking about ta 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 ta. That section, going up to the concert B flat. A lot of editions will have that written sort of slurred to tongue to. Isn't that right? And if you listen to different soloists, they're going to do different versions of that. I've heard, for instance, a Maurice Andre one which goes really quick, where he slurs four, ta ta ta. He does that, and then other ones are slurred. So you're going to get different versions. So pick the one that makes the most sense to you. And when if you do get a chance to play this with the full orchestration at some stage, find what works for you. We have on the B flat trumpet, we have an alternate finger on the way down for the A, which can sometimes help slot you on the way down and get back up. If I'm playing this on B flat trumpet, I do play the A on the way down on third valve. Okay, now would you like to try that first? Just get a nice deep breath and just set up that phrase. Get yourself ready. And I want you to be like ta dee da da ti da ta 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 da ta ta in steady tempo. But really blow through, sing it through, and let's try that A on third valve just for now. Let's see what happens. Right now, nice deep breath. Really move the air through this passage. Yeah. So basically, we've only got 3 valves, so we have little slotting things up at the top of the trumpet up here, don't we? So, it's worthwhile, get into grips with that. Another strategy for this would be to transpose it down. If you play that same sort of pattern, I haven't played for a while, but if you play that same pattern and bring it down a little bit, put it into C major, so you simplify it just a little bit, put it into your C major, so that's going to be. Let's just try that first. So you're playing that in C major for starters. Let's try that. Okay, yeah, so we're going to have a D natural there. Okay, so that's going to take a practice just to do the automatic solfege, and bring it down. But you can do that. You can get this you can get the line of it like that as well, if we're able to sort of get the transposition. I'll tell you what we're going to do. We're going to leave that for a second. We're going to try another strategy. I'm going to do this on the mouthpiece, which is going to make you play the notes in the middle and have the right strength for the notes, okay? But let's take it in on that pitch, right? So we bring it down. We're going to come in on here, sort of concert B flat. And I'm going to play the line sort of on the mouthpiece. Now, where's that page gone? Right. So I'm just going to play the shape of that with solfege, so I'm going to hear it, sort of a fourth down. But I'm going to play it on the mouthpiece. I'm going to slur everything. Okay? So what I'm looking for is to glue everything together. There's no disconnect in the air. The air keeps going through when we work on the slot. So I'll just, I'll demonstrate that and sort of get you to follow. So just try to get the air moving through there and get the lips to follow. Do you want to try that? You can pitch your C on your trumpet if you like, and then let's try that slurred on the mouthpiece. I think we might have frozen a little bit. We'll just wait for the Wi-Fi to kick back in there.
Hi, Colin. Yeah, we appear to have a little bit of a technical difficulty. So if you could just bear with us for a couple of minutes, we will try and get Orla back. Orla, I'm not sure if you can hear us, but it might be worth just leaving the call and returning again. And we'll be back as soon as we can. Colin, you've met Orla before, Glenn. So, I mean, is there a relatively small community of trumpet players in Ireland? Would you come across most of these students sort of in the day-to-day?
Not in the day to day, for sure. There's fantastic things going on all around the country that we wouldn't necessarily be aware of. As you know, I'm based in Dublin,
Yeah,
but I know Ger Condon, where Orla started. We went through the youth orchestras together for years, about 10, 11 years, great pals. And he's done some wonderful things. With all his students, and set it up and got them going, and he has wonderful players sort of leaving his ranks and going elsewhere. So I think that we do have sort of hubs of talent around the country,
yeah,
which is great to see. That it's not just centralized sort of in the big cities, big towns, and that sort of stuff. See, I know Orla for sure. Through Ger, she would have come up sort of to Dublin 3-4 years ago for a consultation lesson where she was making decisions, where am I going to go after school,
sure, sure.
and of course there's a wonderful school of music in Cork, great facilities, and of course from her geographic location makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
And I know you can hear from her playing today, Viv Johnson and Pamela have done sort of terrific things with her playing. We're quite an achievement.
A terrific network of teachers working all around the country, of course. Yes. While we're just waiting for Orla to come back, I just we might shorten our Q&A by taking one of the questions now, if that was okay. And we just have a question in saying that you've referred on a number of occasions to a natural trumpet. Could you explain the difference between a natural trumpet and the regular trumpet, if you like? Or the
Sure.
modern?
We all know the shape of the regular sort of trumpet or the cornet. We probably maybe some brass band players watching in today. That's a regular modern day sort of B flat trumpet. Mine's quite old actually, and like the E flat trumpet I was referring to for. Now I'll show you what they all have in common in a second. Modern day E flat trumpet. So Orla had the option, if she wanted, to make it much easier for herself if she wanted to play it on a modern day E flat trumpet. And what Glenn played was the modern day Piccolo trumpet. But you see, all of these instruments have one thing in common, and that's the piston valve. So these, mostly on trumpets these days, you've got 3 buttons on most, 4 or 5 on some sort of newer things. But the natural trumpet, the piston valve wasn't around yet. It sort of came in sort of for 1800s, maybe between the 1820s, 1830, somewhere there. But the keyed trumpet that we referred to for the Haydn instrument, let me go back first to the natural trumpet. The natural trumpet was just a long piece of tube, and there were no valves. So on this, so you didn't have these extra things to help change the pitch for chromatic notes that we have today. So you were limited to a harmonic series. So for instance, it was like a double pedal, a fundamental note, and then the next, like most people couldn't play that, and then you had another octave, then sort of fifth and etc. But it kept on going up partials. So if I could just demonstrate that, if I don't use any valves on this, maybe I'll just demonstrate, if you didn't have any valves, the limitations of your notes, So I think Orla's back there. We'll just finish this point while we're here.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, so if we're limited to a natural trumpet, now this would be actually pitched, 3, 4, 5 notes higher. This would be considered a high trumpet even, back then. The instruments were longer. So I'll just demonstrate harmonic series. So anybody who wrote for a natural trumpet, they quite often, especially, in the Baroque era, all those sort of famous high sort of clarino parts, the composers had to write in the extreme register where the partials were closer together, where they could actually play tunes. Otherwise, you were limited to sort of octaves and fifths and fourths, the lower register. So I'll just demonstrate the harmonic series. If I don't use any valves, you're limited to a certain number of notes. So I'll just play you roughly like a harmonic series thing. And you can see as we get to the top, we like on that one, I didn't play any of the fundamentals, but I started maybe the third one and then went up to higher notes. But at the top, they get closer together, and that's where those sort of, especially the Baroque composers, sort of made use of the higher partials on the instrument, and that's why all those old pieces. So so in short, natural trumpet, Baroque trumpet, no valves. Anton Weidiger came along and he said, wouldn't it be nice if we could play a few more things down on the low register or whatever, and he added those sort of keyed things. He put holes in the instrument, put pads on them, and now we had chromatic notes. But that keyed trumpet didn't have much of a lifespan, actually, you know. So let's say, you know, the concerto was written in 1796, got performed maybe in the 1800s. The piston valve, you know, with cornets and everything, and the brass instruments came in somewhere between the 1820s, 1830s, and that sort of superseded. So the keyed trumpet, you know, didn't really last that long. Hummel wrote a piece for Anton Weininger as well, and there might be a few other things, and maybe there's one or two more lost that we don't know about, but it has a very small sort of repertoire. And there's probably 100 things that we don't know about. I'm sure there are lots of pieces written for it, but most famous, surely Haydn and Hummel. Yeah, so major difference is modern day trumpet has piston valves. The old natural trumpet, baroque trumpets and everything, just piece of tube. You just use your harmonic series. Some of them had holes to vent to help to get some of the tricky notes that were out of tune, to help to vent them, put them closer to tune. You know, they might have 3 holes, 4 holes. Yeah, so that's the main difference there.
Okay, so thank you for that. So in other words, so the composers utilized the higher register because there were more available notes at that register. Is that, yeah?
Yeah, to get the, like if they wanted to play a tune like da 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 da, Glenn playing the, you know, the Brandenburg in the higher register, those notes side by side, to play those on those old instruments, you had to write extremely high because the lower end of the instrument, the gaps were too big, like an octave or a fifth. So to get tunes, they had to write in the high register. You know.
Okay, well, thank you very much. That's bought us the necessary time for Orla to get back on the call. So Orla, welcome back. I'm going to jump away again, and we'll continue with the remainder of your session. Okay,
thanks, Nigel. Right, Orla, sorry about that. We were always going to get a glitch. It was never going to go smoothly. Delighted you're back with us. So if I remember rightly, yeah, I was going to get you to do an exercise on the mouthpiece just to help you get the strength and really blow through for starters for this rate. So again, I'll demonstrate just in C major. And I'll play this phrase, get you the copy. So what I'm trying to do here is I imagine I'm singing through the mouthpiece and really sort of projecting outwards, you know, leading with the air. Let's try that. Yeah, I bet if we both put ourselves on tuners there, we might get a bit of a shock, you know. Yeah, so we're looking to get that concert F there, the G, you know, up to pitch for starters. Let's bring this up another little bit, and we're going to pause on the upper notes, okay? So I'm not going to bring you straight up to the concert B flat. I'm going to sort of let's bring you to a concert A flat. So we're going to start on E flat on our mouthpiece. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get you to pause on the upper note. So ta di da 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 da. And I want you to really project that note out. So I'll go first. And if you can, project that note out as big as you can. Terrific. Yeah, okay. Do you have another one? Do you have another key higher? Let's go for it. Let's go 2 keys higher. Let's go on our sort of, on our F sound on the B flat. So we'll do exactly the same. And we're going to try and hold out on that upper C. Then we'll do the transfer across to the A, where it can sort of, you know, as we're going back downhill, we have to connect as well. That's important. So. Let's try that. Tom, let's get the first note. One more time. Tom. Yeah, so you're connecting your air and embouchure. They're connecting there. There's no gaps. This is what we're looking for. Now let's connect to the next phrase. We'll do the same thing, still on the mouthpiece, and then we'll put you back on the trumpet slurred. Okay. So a couple of different strategies we might use today just for that phrase, because there's a few key phrases that are more difficult. You know, a few easy ones, but we have to practice the difficult passages. It's more efficient for your practice time to go to the difficult sections, break them down, and sort of get those up to scratch. So still on the mouthpiece, and we have to come back down. Once we're happy with that C, we got to connect the rest of the phrase. So I'll go first. So I took a bit of time from the upper note to the next one on the way down to try and make sure that didn't gap or I didn't lose energy, okay? So if you want to take some time with that one for now, if you want to take a breath after the first bar of it, and then we'll string it together, we'll put it back on the trumpet. Okay, let's try that. You can get your pitch on your B flat if you like. Yeah, it's quite an amazing thing, isn't it, to be able to transfer symbols on a piece of sheet music into sound, you know? And it's a really important thing for brass players, you know, because we're, you know, the valves are only helping us slot, so we have to hear, and then we have to, you know, like a vocalist, you know, we have to be able to put those notes in the right position. So I think that sort of aural awareness is important as well. So if you want to put that on a tuner, you know, or play it to yourself a few times, you know, down the octave, and then sort of go onto your, you know, bring it up an octave or on your mouthpiece, and get those notes bang in the middle, you know. Okay, now let's go on to your trumpet, and I'd like you to play slowly through that phrase, all slurred.
All slurred, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So what we're looking for, Orla, is a couple of strategies that you might use to make that phrase a little bit more secure, right? Now, let's do another one. I want you to play. I want you to play two notes for each note. So I want you to go. We're going to tongue, and I'm going to get you to go. We're going to work on slotting here, right? So what I want you to go is better with the metronome. By the way, if you're doing your own practice, put this on the metronome so we have the time. We you know, we can really sense. You know, if we're able to time it from note to note. So put your metronome on, not today, but in your practice room, and try things like ta 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 ta. So when you do that subdivision, like especially on the C to the A on the way down, you might find that slot. So whatever that is, it could be a tongue level thing or it could be whatever. So just different strategies for fixing phrases, you know, in the breakdown. So I'm going to get you to practice that a few times. So pick it up there and let's go ta 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 ta. Let's try that. Yeah, very good. Okay, so starting to get clean. We all struggle with that, eh? I know I'm throwing things at you. We have to sort of think really quickly. You know, when you're sort of in your practice room yourself and you have time to strategize with that, stick the metronome on, bring it down really slow, and get it as clean as you can. Now let's do that all tongued, and I want you to go long in the articulation. So tenuto, strike the tongue for sure. We're going to go ta 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 ta. So you're longer on the note. Okay, and let's try it like that. Okay, now let's go back to our original articulation. You're going to take your original sort of slur to tongue to for now, and let's put a tiny bit more speed on it. Okay, and then we'll gradually bring it up, so we're working on the velocity. Okay, so maybe some ta 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 somewhere in there. Yeah. So Orla, I think what we're talking about is slotting, accuracy in the slotting. So our valves, you know, can help in some cases, and in other cases they don't, you know. So, you know, we do have slotting practice to do. You might find there are flexibility books that you could practice like how brass players do it, or the Charles Colin or Balin. But you could do those. Tony Plogg's book 5 is really, really good, actually. But any of those books with your slotting practice, I would also sort of practice, as well as slurred, practice them with articulation, loud and soft, and different types of articulation that you're going to find in your music, staccato and tenuto, whatever, or accents. But metronome practice for timing. The body has to do everything timed, and we have to train it time. So I think it's worth doing the breakdown and learn how to teach yourself. Is really important, because I could say something and it may not land, or maybe not the way you would do it. But if you think deeply enough about what are the difficulties in this passage, and then try and find little creative solutions, to get over the line with it, and it might introduce a whole new sort of range of ideas you can use, not only for this piece but other pieces as well. I don't know if you've been to many masterclasses, on trumpet or different instruments, but there seems to be a common thread, apart from we play music, deliver the music, we're performers. There's also the common thread of some of the great sort of instrumentalists and soloists being in the practice room, practicing very, very, very slow and very deeply. And I think that's a common thread for a lot of them. That ability to focus down to the sort of fine detail. I heard this not only sort of, in somebody practicing the Haydn, but recently I was listening to a podcast. I think it was Lewis Howe, The School of Greatness. And I was listening to a podcast on Kobe Bryant, who, as we know, sort of passed away sort of last year. And it was his strategy as an 11-year-old, when he realized he was the worst on his team, and how did he get from age 11, when he realized, he didn't score any baskets in sort of in that season. How did he get from there to when he was 14, 15 years of age, and he was the best player in the state, And what it was his, and he'll say this, right, it was a study of detail, just watching, taking what he thought was his worst technique, which was actually scoring baskets, so he just did that strategy time and time again for months and months and months until he started to get a percentage that was much higher. And then he would do the other, I don't know the skills in basketball, but he would do the same thing with all the other breakdown points, all the other skill sets that you need to be a great player. He would break them down one by one, and he'd keep on practicing them until he got good at them. And within that short time, he went from being the worst on his team to the best. So I would recommend that, or any other book that you can find. I know we have Daniel Coyle's, what's that one called? The Talent Code, and how we learn, how the brain works. It's something I'm particularly into myself, but that sort of thing. So attention to detail, get it really, really precise. Know what your end goal is, know what you want it to sound like, and then strategize how to break it down. So if I was to say something today that's important, it's just that, knowing the end goal and know those strategies. Right. Now, any other phrases that you've played so far? By the way, is it just the first movement you're doing today, or have you more? Just the first movement. Right. Let's. By the way, congratulations on the large leaps. It's something we covered earlier a little bit with Erin, and we know how to do it. There's lots of different ways sort of to do that. But on your B flat trumpet, take those large leaps in. So well done for that. And again, the trills are going to be difficult on your B flat trumpet, right? Some of them lie with the vowels, as we know, some of them don't. How did you do the trill at the very end? You came off the cadenza and you finished out. Did you valve that, or was that a lip trill?
No, I valved it. I just.
Okay, well done. Right, it was quite effective. So well done. So we have options there. We can do the fast sort of lip trill. So well done. Okay, Orla, lots of good things in here. How are we doing time wise? We're doing all right. Would you mind going back to the start?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. I'm just going to stop you there before we play the next bit. Well done. Terrific playing again. I really enjoyed that. So yes, congratulations. You would have a choice if you wanted, where we do the trills, it's never to take away from the line, which you didn't. So well done there. You have the option of putting in a few more turns there if you want. Again, a little bit easier on an E flat trumpet, I think, but on a B flat trumpet, we can practice that. If we were to practice sort of fast trills, moving from sort of a finger trill to a lip trill, I would say have a look at the Clark Technical Studies for the Cornet, and I think it's study number 4 that deals with the trill. And when we start to get up a little bit higher in the range, we have options. I would loop some of those bars around, let's say we're doing an E to an F sharp trill. I would loop them around with the valve, and I would also play all 3 fingers doing a lip trill and try and keep it the same sound and the same speed. And I'll do the same for F to G. I'll play the F to G on first valve, by the way, with the metronome, really timed, like ta-di-da-di-da-di-da-di-da, and then I do the same on a lip trill, ta-ya-ya, where it's definitely sort of a movement up here. So if you're looking for something to help with trills or develop the awkward valve trills that just go over the gaps on the instrument, we all know where the gaps are, like I know if we might have grade 5, there might be a trumpet voluntary on there, and we have that C to D trill to cope with for the first time. It's one of those moments, So we have, if we're on the B flat trumpet here, we have a few of those, things to deal with. So I would point you in the direction of the Clark Technical Studies for the Cornet with the metronome, for sure. And that's going. And well, by the way, well done all the high range. Watch you maintain your tempo. Occasionally, there's a tendency to rush ahead. Your options in this: use the metronome, get together with a piano player. And you might have heard me mention earlier, there's probably a couple of different versions of the Haydn Trumpet Concerto on YouTube for accompaniment with the sheet music. And there might be a couple of book and CD or book and MP3 thing that will have an accompaniment. And something like that will keep you honest with your tempo. So I would say, practice with an accompanist, or if we can't get an accompanist, try and get a backing track, at least or a metronome, just for pulse, Okay, Orla, have you... This was terrific, really some great playing, and I still can't believe you're doing this on your B flat trumpet and so well. So congratulations. Have you any questions for me on any other areas of that we hit today?
That E flat. Do you have any tips about that E flat? Because I'm having nightmares about it.
Yeah, I thought that was going to come up at some stage. I have a flat trumpet today, but I'm not going. I'm going to leave it there, right? I'm going to leave it there. Yeah, upper register. Upper register is faster air, and you probably need to be able to hold your corners. I'm going to give you a couple of exercises on this. Let's do sort of. We're going to do sort of compression studies where we hit the notes right in the center. So let me see. I'll put you in the key of F major, right? On our B flat trumpet. And we're going to do that Mixolydian scale. We're going to do that 5/7 chord. So from the F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E flat. And we're going to stop on that E flat. So what I'm going to get you to do is, what I mean by compression is we're going to try and get the air to move fast. Right? So we've got a couple of different options here, to encourage the air to move fast, So like I might do things warming up where I'm sort of doing like a who breath repeatedly. If I'm teaching some of the younger kids, I go the Santa Claus ho 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 thing, and I go sort of and I just try and get sort of darts of fast air, and I do that on repeat, until they're exhausted, then they're ready to go home, that's it. So I'll do that, and that can work. Is trying to strategize how to get fast air. We can do a flutter tongue thing. If you flutter tongue, not everybody can flutter tongue. It's not always in the Irish language, but learning to flutter tongue can sort of help you strengthen up a little bit here. I might move away from the microphone for this one. So let's try this for starters before I get you to play staccato, right? So I'm going to get you to play F major scale. We're going to stick in an E flat at the top, right? Because we're sort of staying in the... Okay, so I'm going to play flutter tongue on an F major with an E flat. Could you do that for me? Now, one more time, and really important to go across the hill at the top from the E flat to the F. So really blow sort of nice and strong across that. So usually what happens is that adding the flutter tongue for trumpet players, I can't speak for other brass instruments, but because the flutter is getting in the way of the air, we tend to want to blow more, so it engages the air, it makes you blow faster. And also, because that's happening, we also have to work harder here. So it can sort of energize this, it can engage the corners here. So we tend to set up two of the most important factors, for resistance on the instrument, for blowing those notes. So your fast air, and strong sort of facial sort of resistance, so that's a strategy, and bring that, up to the upper range. Let's try that in another tone higher, right? So let's just go on a G to G. We'll stick in an F natural at the top. You stick in a B flat if you want. So it doesn't matter what scale you use. I'm going to sort of stay in the key. I'm going to put a sort of B flat and F natural. Or you can just play a straightforward G major if you like. So if you want to take that around the instrument with sort of scales and arpeggios and bring that as high and as low as you can, and just make sure you move the air. Now we're going to go to another strategy. We're going to practice sort of articulation exercise, really hitting the notes quite strong. You'll see these exercises in several books. There's Brass Tactics, Chase Sanborn, I think, a friend of mine showed me this one. There's compression studies in there. And basically it's hitting the notes right in the center with clear articulation. And similar to the flutter tongue, it makes you blow fast and it makes you sort of work this. So basically what you're working on is something that's difficult. So, you sort of get tired today, but stronger tomorrow. It makes you play with good form. So let's do this, right? I'll bring you, let's do C major scale for starters before I bring you to the E flat. I'm going to get you to play really sort of precise but aggressive articulation. And this just makes you work here. So I'm going to take a very, very strong posture so we can move the air, and I'm going to strike the notes quite hard. So I'll demonstrate like a C major. I'm going to do sort of semi-quavers. That type of thing where we're really hitting the notes aggressive. Let's try that.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, one more time. So you can see with that extra volume, and when we're trying to go for that, it's asking us to work a little bit harder. So you have to work a little bit in that struggle area to get stronger. Now less practice there. Sorry, I don't mean less practice, but you're not going to spend 2 hours just hitting those notes. But you want to go to a point of I can feel that now, I'm getting tired. Let's do that again and really concentrate on trying to forget we're online and everything. Really concentrate on that A and the B in particular before you get the C, and see if you can really sort of nail those. Let's try that again. Yeah, so I think you have that there a few more times, and that's going to start to settle. When that sort of top C starts to get really strong, then just work to the C sharp until you nail that, and just keep working up until those upper notes start to appear. So you can just go up in scale passages. I would bring you to a book that's quite useful here, one that I found useful because it just puts the note on the page, one extra, so it gives you your scale to the high note and then start on your high note. And it strategically works up semitone. So it spoon feeds it, lays it out on the page. Look, these are the notes, let's start practicing them. And it's quite good because it introduces all the techniques, not just we're getting this note, we also have to practice intervals, we have to practice flexibility, different dynamics. So it's a book by Clyde Hunt called Sailing the Seven Seas. Okay, so it's one to take note of because it's, and it works in phases of range, so let's say you're grade 1, 2, 3 player, you're only going to be playing between sort of C on the third space and low G. If you're looking to play sort of lead trumpet in a big band or something, the last part of the book is going up to the double C. But all the work it's laid out in all the chapters before that, it's not that silly jump, So it's strategized. If you want to go from point A to point Z, it's in a book like that, okay? Okay, Orla, I think, can I just say, lots of fantastic playing today. For any of those techniques, you've got fantastic teachers. I know them very well, and they're going to know all of these sort of strategies. You don't need me to tell you these. So your teachers know all this. I know that for sure. And well done today, and especially for bringing the Haydn trumpet concerto, a favorite piece, brought that along, and especially for playing this on your B flat trumpet. So congratulations today, and well done.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Orla. Well done, and thank you for coming back into us after our technical glitch. So Orla, Glenn, and Aaron, we have you all back here, and we'll just have our Q&A session. Thank you all again for such great playing, and a big thank you, Colm, of course, for all of your insights and comments and feedback today. It's been really, really interesting to watch, and I've enjoyed both the commentary and the playing very much indeed, as I'm sure everybody has watching. We always kick off our Q&A section with questions from our participants, which we'll do, I think, in the order that they played. So I think, Glenn, you were up first. Have you a question that you'd like to ask Glenn?
Yes. So, Colin, you're really good for books and podcast recommendations, actually. You've recommended a few good things to me before. I know the Talent Code book, I'm reading that at the minute, and Breath by James Nestor. Have you got any other books or podcasts that you like?
Yeah, loads. It's one of my favorite subjects. It helps me go to sleep at night sometimes when I stick on a podcast, and I tend to be really trumpet anorak and put on things that are applicable to what I do, Yeah, I would listen to TED Talks. It's not always trumpet things that I listen to, by the way. I would listen to TED Talks, and I already mentioned things like the School of Greatness, or there's a Tim Ferriss show. And sort of what those podcasts have in common is, they sort of bring on people who have been successful in whatever walk of life that they've been in. So I mentioned Kobe Bryant before, and how he was, what he considered the worst on his team, and how did he get from point A to point B. I'm very much interested in sort of mental techniques and peak performance practice. So I would have read books like, which you probably have as well, the Don Green, sports psychologist people. I know he has links with a lot of American colleges like Juilliard. So there's probably been, in modern days, many more sports psychologists, all these teams with massive amount of finance behind them are able to book these people to help them out to get, sort of athletes, in their practice, in their preparation, sort of peak strategies for getting from here to here, and then the delivery, the performance. So many of those sort of psychologists have also, gone into different circles, of course, whatever it is, and music being one of them. Like we have the Inner Game of Tennis, you probably know that, and then we had, the side kick for that, which is the Inner Game of Music. And there's probably Zen and the Art of Paintballing, for all I know. There's so many of these books to look at. But I'd say I mentioned the Don Green one in particular. That's been a good read, but I tend to, I would have read those before, and now I tend to branch out into other areas and of whatever. It could be a business person, it could be a doctor who's interested in neuroscience. Like we mentioned Arnold Jacobs earlier, he went to the neuroscientists of his day and tried to figure out what are the best, how does the brain work, how do we learn, that sort of stuff. And in his day, and of course that's come on in leaps and bounds since then. So it's not only Arnold Jacobs' works, you'll like I recently I found a podcast with Joe Dispenza. I think that was on the School of Greatness as well, neuroscientist, how we learn, peak strategies for getting from here to here efficiently. So it's applying that knowledge base or that transferable skill from listening to those to what you do, if it's trumpet playing or if it's whatever. So I'm very much interested in that, so that's, you may have noticed today we did break down stuff that was maybe only 2 notes or something. And I think it is that sort of deep breakdown that I'm personally interested in. So yeah, look, if anybody wants to know at any more stages, once you get 1 or 2 hits, it tends to bring, especially on if you're on the internet, like if you look up sort of Don Green, or Christian Seenstrup, whoever it is, if you look up some of these names, you're probably going to get a whole spider web of hits and connections to other people, and you'll find your own way. Yeah, so I hope I answered something there. Yeah.
Thank you, Glenn. And Aaron, have you a question for Colin?
I do, yeah. I was just going to ask, do you have any tips for building stamina? Like, say, even just when practicing? Yeah.
Play to failure. I know that, no, that sounds simplistic. It's part of it. There's a couple of different strategies here. We can do the sort of play, rest thing, So if you take a study or a piece that you're working on, and you want to stay fresh. Let's say you're practicing for 3 hours today. You know, you're not going to go in your first sort of 45 minutes and slam it on your face until you're absolutely exhausted. But you know, if you have to get, you know, good practice done over the whole day, while that is a strategy in itself, there is play, rest in whatever format that takes. If you're doing 16 bars, rest for 4, whatever. So you find your breakdown. So that is definitely a way forward to stay fresh. But I would also push. So endurance is endurance. How long can you play for? So we heard Glenn talking earlier about Brandenburg. That's a particular thing for that. But similarly, if you had to do a recital in college, right, which you're going to be doing and you have done already, and let's say in your first year you've got 25 minutes, in your final year you got to play for 45 minutes to an hour. It's too late in the last sort of 1, 2, 3 weeks, you know, to be trying to put your program together at that stage. You want to be strategizing from early on. I have to gradually build up my stamina over this whole year. So you have to have your program sort of picked and practice that. So I would practice playthroughs of single pieces, you know, then add on your second piece and gradually add it on and see where you are stamina wise. I mentioned earlier as well, this has been a particular favorite of mine, especially when we've been locked down, you know, during the COVID pandemic, is backing tracks. Like I started out in a brass band when I was a kid, you know, and I didn't really practice that much, you know. I was probably like most sort of kids around the country. I went to 2 band practice sort of sessions twice a week for 2 hours, you know. But in that 2-hour time, it was intensive playing. You had to play. It didn't come off your face all of that time, you know, so you're exhausted, you know, you got a good workout, you know. So I will still do that sort of practice. And during lockdown, I would take sort of backing tracks and I would set them up, even if I was with a practice mute, which isn't ideal, as we know. But I would set out, you know, pieces I haven't played for a few years or stuff I was working on, and I would set them out back to back. And I'd go, right, I'm playing for 45 minutes or whatever, or let's say we're at 10 minutes and our endurance goes. But you build it from that point gradually. So you just play. Is another just tackle it head on and just play more pieces back to back. And so that might be simplistic, but just play until you're tired, play till you're tired, play till you're tired, and gradually extend that time. So sometimes, as I say, with a brass band background, you mightn't have the choice. You just get in there and you have to play for those 2 hours, and then suddenly you get match fit or you get endurance without thinking about it. Sometimes if we're practicing on our own, you know, we get worried about it, we start to get fatigued. Well, that's okay, you know, but just play more, practice more, play more, set yourself up with a piece that's 1 note higher or a piece that's slightly longer in duration. And if you're in college, your recitals should gradually go from, say, your shorter duration to when you finish for a full recital, you know. So yeah, just if you want to have endurance, practice endurance. It sounds simplistic, but you know, it's the way forward, you know. Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you, Aaron, Colm, and Orla. A question for Colm.
I was just wondering, like during COVID, how have you kept yourself motivated to play? Because I've struggled a lot with motivation to play like every day with no kind of big goals lately. So I was wondering how you dealt with that.
Yeah, do you know, Orla, you're not on your own. Apart from students, professional players alike, and everybody, I've heard of some professional players that the instrument stayed in the case for many months at a time and didn't come out because there was no reason. They weren't sort of playing with their peers, you know, there was no music and everything was shut down. So a very difficult time for an awful lot of people, I think, in the arts in general and across the wider spectrum of community and whatever they do. Very difficult time. Now maybe I'm unusual, or I'm a real anorak, and I love the breakdown in the practice room. I don't just have to be on a stage playing, you know. So I don't mind what I was mentioning earlier about sort of mental techniques and working on the breakdown and working in the struggle zone. That's an area I actually like to be in. I know it sounds weird, but when I'm messing something up, you know, it's a happy moment for me because I've something that I can work on, and I like going from that point A to B, even if it's only a simple progression thing. So maybe it's a mindset thing, and you know, and I know also getting started is difficult if we don't have an idea of what we want to achieve, say today or longer term, or even today, you know. So I'd set little goals, whatever that was, and I'd try and achieve it, no matter how small it is. So, you know, what did you say? Are you in third year? Is that? Yeah. So, I mean, you've already probably finished a couple of recitals this year. I'd imagine, so that would have been something you had in the back of your mind, and you would have had to figure out how to get yourself match fit to learn those pieces and to get through the recital. So you had a goal. I think that's important, to have a goal, no matter how small it is. Never set the bar too high. Just set a goal and then get into the practice room and work on achieving that. So no matter how small, I would say don't set the bar too high. Just one little achievement at a time. And personally, I get a kick out of that. Now, I think, if anybody is interested in the whole neuroscience, there might be something else in this. There might be chemicals that get released in the body, like dopamine or whatever. Who knows, right? I don't know about that area, not a neuroscientist, but there is. When we have little personal achievements like that, it gives us a bit of a kick, So that's something that I might do. I might say, right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to set that piece. I'm going to try that piece. Haven't played that before. That's got one extra high note, or that's got leaps that I can't do. And I'll just set about, getting in the practice room and doing that nitty gritty practice. And that's the stuff I enjoy. I don't always have to have the end product of being out on the stage. I'm quite happy. Now, maybe I'm unusual like that, but I think that's important to have a goal, to set a goal, and then actually put it into action, actually getting in the practice room and starting off is sometimes a difficult thing. Taking the instrument out of the case is sometimes difficult for some people, and maybe you haven't played for a while, it feels bad, but just might have to get through that period and just go. So that's what I'd say, clear intention, clear goal, set reasonable targets, and then see if you can achieve them. And we usually get a kick out of that. Certainly I do. So I hope that's a help in some way, so.
Thank you, Colin. Good advice across all of the questions. So thanks so much. We have a couple of questions from our viewers. Well, we've already answered the natural trumpet question. But we have a question: what's your favorite orchestral piece to play as a member of the section rather than as a soloist?
Oh, wow. I don't have a favorite. I'll tell you why. It tends to be a random thing. We're very lucky. We have a fantastic team with the National Symphony Orchestra, and we work. We're great pals, and we work together. And obviously things like, I'm going to say the obvious things like Mahler symphonies, or some of the Strauss tone poems, that sort of stuff. We've played these random cycles a few times. The Mahler symphonies, the Strauss tone poems. Beethoven symphonies, we've done the Bruckners, we've done the cycles of these a few times, Shostakovich symphonies, and most of those I get a great kick out of. What I get a kick out of most is when I'm sitting in the section and we don't have to say anything and stuff is just right. We listen to Graham at the top, and he's a world-class sort of trumpet player. And just listening to Graham and then fitting in the section, and we just get that sound where we're in tune, and it just resonates like that. So it's no particular piece. It's just when the section is on form, and we just get that sensation of, right, we're on it here today. But of course, I have to say the usual things. I love the Mahler symphonies. There's so many great moments. I haven't had a chance to play too many of the first trumpet parts. I'm usually sitting in the co-principal position, and listening to Maestro Graham Hastings take it away for 22 years. I've listened to him sitting beside him. So that's and the section and Killian Bannister. What a phenomenal sort of second trumpet player. The absolute rock of the section. But yeah, I would have to say, sitting in for Mahler's Fifth Symphony, obviously any of the Mahler symphonies, they've been, the highlight over my years. Strauss tone poem, Bruckner, for sure. When you have that brass section, I don't know if anybody's listened to like the New York Phil or the Chicago Symphony Orchestra or the Berlin or the Vienna, and when you hear the section sound, like not just instruments sticking out, as you say, the tutty stuff. I love to listen to that brass sound where everybody's in tune with each other, and that's something we have, I suppose, tried to get in the orchestra over years, and that's what I get. It doesn't matter what the piece is, will be my answer, is when we get those moments that it's just in the zone for everybody. So sorry if I didn't pick out particular pieces to hone in on. There's too many. There's too many.
It's a very good answer. Yeah.
that was great, you know.
Yeah, no, it's a great answer. Thank you. And one other question. I guess this is from it is from an adult beginner asking two parts. First of all, how important is it to start trumpet at a young age, because you started young? And what advice would you give to an adult beginner? Now, I don't know. I don't have any information whether this person. I presume they're just doing it for their own pleasure. I don't know if they're intending on taking it out as a professional decision or not.
My answer there is you can start at any age. Look, there are methods out there, that do say that the younger you start, the better. Like, let's say we had a Suzuki violin method, but which is transferred across to the other instruments, or they're going to recommend, start, first of all, listening to music really early on, so you absorb it, and then get onto your instrument, learn to play really before you think it's difficult, before you put barriers in the way, thinking about it too much. Just get going early. There is that for sure. But I would say anybody can learn at any stage and any age, as long as you have the right approach. So if you want to start on the trumpet, I would say number one, it doesn't matter what age you are, have a listen to your favorite players, get the sound into your head. Find a good teacher to give you an efficient way sort of to practice, and to set the right repertoire. I would say get into an ensemble if you can, whatever area you're in the country. Do you have a brass band, a wind band, or an orchestra? You're probably going to get more playing and more match fitness from something like a brass band scenario. Or are there players around, let's say you're interested in different styles, you might be interested in jazz or orchestral. Find like-minded people around that you can set up a little group. So you have the sort of momentum of the social thing, but you also have the sort of friendly competition element, so I'd say find like-minded people and just get in and play together. You can start at any age, listen to the best players, but then you have to get in the practice room and still do the work. I find, if you're an amateur player and there's pieces you want to play, find music that you like playing. You're probably going to bring that up to a standard more so than sort of obscure things like etudes or something, So find music that you enjoy playing and that you could imagine yourself singing and then putting onto the instrument. So any age, I would say.
Okay, thank you very much. And we're running up to our finish time. So just to wrap up, Colm, I'd like to thank you again for such a interesting and very entertaining session this afternoon. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'm sure our participants have, and I'm sure everybody watching has as well. Also to Glenn, Aaron, and Orla, thank you very much for taking part in this. We hope, obviously, as soon as we can, to be doing these events back in the concert hall, and we look forward to seeing you back in the hall as soon as we're in a position to do so. In the meantime, we will continue with online masterclasses, and the next in our series is actually this Friday, and that's at 2 p.m, same time as today. And this is being run in association with the Irish Baroque Orchestra, and it is a harpsichord masterclass with Malcolm Proud. So it's the first time we've done a harpsichord masterclass, so we're very much looking forward to it, and we hope that you will tune in again and have a listen and a watch of that with us, 2 p.m. this coming Friday. Thank you again, Colm, and our participants for a very enjoyable afternoon, and we hope to see you all again very shortly. So thank you.
Thanks, Nigel. Thanks, everybody. Well done today.
Thank you.
Thank you.